We now have a new area of interest to watch out in the Atlantic for tropical development over the next several days or so, as some energy will make its way out the central portion of the Atlantic, get into the Caribbean, where it will have a shot to develop. Model guidance is really starting to lock into the idea of this. One thing it is certainly not locking into is where it goes if it potentially develops. So we'll go over all model guidance from overnight to this morning. We'll show you some fancy graphics, kind of geek out with you guys a little bit, and explain why the Caribbean is really favorable for tropical development over the next couple weeks or so. Then we'll talk about tomorrow's severe weather threat across areas of the country, and then we'll round the video off with today's forecast. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Hope you guys are having a wonderful start to your Friday. Thank the good Lord it is Friday. But here to break down the entire Atlantic, and I'm just really going to circle one thing, and that is this tropical energy right here. And really just going to circle another area inside the bigger circle here. And this is really our tropical wave we are watching right into here. The National Hurricane Center has put a yellow X on this. That means they're watching it. And this wave right here could eventually get into the Caribbean. In fact, it most likely will, and it will have a shot to develop somewhere in this circled area right here. So I just kind of wanted to show you the bigger picture, what we'll be discussing a lot over the next several days or so, and where this system, this energy is right at this moment in the Atlantic. So nothing else to really discuss. I mean, there is an area of interest out of this big swirl right here, but I'm not going to really talk about that at all, as this is not really going to bother anybody. But let's move past this. Let's go over the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Now, I do expect a change with this graphic, maybe by the time some of you folks watch this, but as of right now, like I said, they got a yellow X on this. This is the area we're watching, but the area we're watching for development is this yellow area right here. It has a 30% chance of a tropical development between now and the next 7 days, which means 30% chance to develop into a depression or a named storm, which is Melissa, by the way. That is our next named storm, Melissa. So we might start to hear that a lot over the next several days or so. I think that this 30 will bump up to a 40 sometime in the next few updates, maybe at the 8 a.m. update here in about an hour or so. So if you're yelling at me on the screen saying, Mitch, it's at a 40 now, it's at a 40, trust me, I see it. I'm just making this video as of around like 6:30, 6:45 right now. So this could bump up, but did want to show you the latest graphic that I got. The latest, it's not going to change any information I'm about to give you in this video. But let's go over all model guides. We're going to start off with Monday morning. If I forget to mention the day of the week, just look up here, October the 20th. This little blob, I know there's many blobs of green and splashes of yellow, but this area right here is really the wave we're watching. By Monday morning, this area should be sneaking to the Eastern Caribbean. So if you're in the Lesser Antilles, things like that, you're tuning in, I wouldn't be overly concerned about this, but we could see some wild stuff with this. But the energy will swing in later this weekend. So let's continue to move this forward. We get into Tuesday. Not a whole lot. We're starting to see an L pop up though. So deepening of low pressure down here. A lot of unsettled weather down here in the Caribbean. Okay, and then we swing into Wednesday. And then we swing into Thursday. Not a whole lot changes. And then we go all the way a week from right now. And we definitely have a lot of unsettled weather. I will tell you the Euro is a slower solution compared to all the other model guides I'm about to show you. A little bit of an outlier with that as far as the time frame. So we start to get between day 7 and day 10. We got 1,006 millibar low chilling right smack dab in the middle of the Caribbean. And then we get into Sunday morning. And then by the time we're into next weekend, we have an all-out tropical storm developing down here. After that happens, stronger system wants to gain latitude and just get north. And that's exactly what happens. So this thing immediately begins to chug north. And I do want to note, we are pretty far out, 288 hours out. That's past day 10. Okay, but we have a pretty large, and listen, I'm going to tell you, anything that develops down here in the Caribbean will have a shot to become a pretty large storm system. A lot of moist air, no dry air around down here to really mess up the symmetrical look of this system. I mean, it'll just be loaded with moisture. It'll just be very expanded out, if you will. The Euro does show a nasty scenario where we have a strengthening hurricane rumbling through areas of the Greater Antilles. And then literally just pumps the brakes. I mean, this is way out too. Please don't view this as a forecast. Pumps the brakes, between Hispaniola, Cuba, the Turks Caicos Islands, and actually tries to begin to head back west. So, I mean, if I put this in fast motion here, look what this does. I mean, just a wild, outrageous scenario. We say outrageous, but listen, steering currents are very weird this time of the year with a lot of pools in the atmosphere, things like that. And this is all the way out to pretty much October 31st. Okay, now we move into the GFS. We got about 10, 11, 12 days of it. Our energy is moving into the Caribbean here. GFS is consistently wanting this to develop quicker. Now let's see what the latest run does. Same thing. By the time we're into next Wednesday, October the 22nd, we have a tropical storm developing. Then we got a hurricane by the time we get into this time next week, a week from right now. And I mean, this is a pretty strong hurricane. If we're going off millibar, maybe a Cat 2, right in the middle of the Eastern Caribbean. And what does it do after that? It wants to kind of move northeast. Like I said, weird steering currents. You think, well, why is it doing this? Well, it's because we have a lot of flow up here. A lot of troughing up here, so the flow's moving west to east. So it's got to find a weakness. It's got to probably take more of a European route, stay weaker for longer, drift further west, if it's going to threaten anybody further west, if that makes sense. But it does have a major hurricane next weekend, right around, Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, things like that. But then it, scoots on back out into the Atlantic Ocean. Well, at least it gets further out in the Atlantic Ocean, turns into a fish storm, but not before doing damage to areas of the Caribbean islands. Okay, so what about the Euro AI model? And one thing I want to note is this model really stays conservative until it's almost like a person, but it stays very conservative until it's very confident that it thinks something's going to happen. And sure enough, now the Euro AI model, when this starts to bite on something, then we start to say, we're starting to learn a lot about this Euro AI model and the AI model guides. And really starts to lock into something, we really start to think it's locking in. So my confidence is really getting high that we're going to get a named storm out of this. How strong does it get? Where does it go? Not quite sure. Nobody knows that. But this develops into a tropical storm midway next week. So kind of strengthens fast like the GFS and, stays at a weaker tropical storm. And 1001, that's probably just still a tropical storm and, brings impacts to Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. And then it gets north and just really slows down and just kind of takes the same path in general as the GFS. The icon, what does it show? It keeps this weaker for longer, like the Euro, kind of follows the Euro, if you will, and gets this energy further west in the Caribbean. The further west this gets, the more we don't like that. The more it could impact just more people in general. Okay, so it gets this energy right in the middle of the Caribbean. It's weak, but we don't want any energy brewing down here at all. Okay, so we take this, we can only go about a week out on the icon. Has a slowly organizing area of low pressure in the middle of the Caribbean. Now, what about the Canadian model? It wants to pop this thing off pretty fast. Already a tropical storm by Monday morning and gets into a Cat 1 hurricane and then has a landfalling hurricane in the southern shoreline of Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, Haiti. And then it gets it and just kind of swirls it around the greater Antilles. And even actually tries to bog it back down to the Caribbean. So that's model guidance. Now I'm going to show you a different way to look at the ensemble guidance. I'm going to try to explain it to you just very simple here. So we're going to start off Monday morning. This is the Euro ensemble, makes up 51 members. And just where you see areas, you see how you got this solid blue color up here? The brightening of more of the vibrant colors that you're about to see down here is our strengthening signal. So watch how you start to see some yellows, some brighter greens and things like that. This is the Euro ensemble. It follows its op, right? The operational run. So we get about a week out from today. As you have many members down here, but they're deep in the Caribbean. A couple of them over here. But then as we get between day 7 and day 10, these members that kind of hang out down here for a little too long, they begin to get strong. Some of these members that are left, I mean, you got like a Cat 5 hurricane just about hitting Cuba here, and that's not a forecast, but it just looks loud afterwards, meaning we're seeing a lot of tropical energy down here. Now, the GFS ensemble, what does it do? it almost shows two different signals, like one down here, one over here. I don't think we're going to have two tropical systems, but I mean, we get to about 1 week from today, and I mean, that is a pretty loud signal for some sort of tropical development down here. See the brightening of the colors on your screen? Just think of that as where there's many members off this ensemble run. There's not going to be 25 hurricanes or anything like that, but I mean, there's a lot going on here. What's interesting is the GFS ensemble really, really likes the idea of, it almost gets louder between day 7 and day 10. And do we have the 06Z run? No, we only have it through about midway next week, and we compare this, yeah, I mean, it looks about the same, honestly. So one thing that is a bit concerning is the Google DeepMind ensemble guidance here is starting to like the idea of this a lot more. And I would say it likes more so the GFS, the Canadian, and things like that, the Euro AI model. Normally the Euro AI model and the Euro kind of are close together, not with this system. So look how many members are starting to show up with this now. Now, it does get it into the middle of the Caribbean. And then there is a sudden jog north with a lot of these members. And some of these members are quite strong, guys, I will add. And but there's still confusion. Some of them slow down. Some of them kind of stay in the Central Caribbean. But you got a slew of these members going right over Hispaniola. So it's definitely a solid signal for something coming together here. And the reason being is we have a lot of fuel down here. And fuel in the tropics means warm sea surface temperatures. It means low wind shear and just a very moist environment. That's the three key things here. And this is in Celsius, so you basically got a hot tub down here. Maybe not quite that hot, but basically a bathtub down here in the Caribbean when it comes to very warm waters. And I mean, you look at this, you got 30, 31 degrees Celsius. That's mid upper 80s. Some areas might be 90 degrees. So I mean, just rocket fuel for hurricane activity. So you check that off the box. Next thing you look at is low wind shear. A lot of shear up here in the blues and greens. This is wind flow at 200 millibars. So, upwards of 40,000 feet up in the air. But down here in the Caribbean, you see how you have the white? That means you don't have a whole lot of flow at all in the upper levels. So there's not a lot of just wind flow disrupting any kind of cyclonic spin with these tropical systems. So if any kind of energy just sort of kind of meanders, not the color we want, kind of meanders into this area right here, okay, it's not going to have a lot of upper wind flow to really bother this. Wind shear. So therefore, these storm systems are just kind of spinning around and doing their own thing here. And well, I mean, the airflow. Sorry, my oven just went off and it really distracted my mind. So I don't know why the oven is on. I might need to go check on that here in a second. But anyways, a little bit of a homegrown disturbance there. But we got a lot of air being dispersed out away from any lower pressure here. So as air is being dispersed away, that allows for just a huge environment for a lot of rising air. So what I'm saying is the entire Caribbean is just going to be a huge area of rising air. We know that rising air allows for shower and storm development. Shower and storm development, convection creates a moist environment. And tropical systems don't like dry air. They like moist air. So the entire environment down here, low wind shear. So low wind shear, rising air can happen. And therefore, you get a very moist environment. If I do this on the fly real quick, and I'm going to switch it to this. You see how much green is down here? That's moist air. A lot of dry air up here. But down here, you're just chilling in all this moist air for this tropical activity to really just thrive. So pretty much you can check off all three things, the main ingredients for tropical activity down here for sure. So talking about tomorrow's severe weather threat, we've done crept closer to this. It is now tomorrow. So there's a large slight risk, includes the entire state of Arkansas, includes the southern half of Missouri, southern areas of Illinois, areas of Indiana, western Tennessee, northwestern areas of Mississippi, northern Louisiana, northeast Arkansas, and then eastern areas of Oklahoma. So, I mean, Monroe, Shreveport, almost all the way back down to Dallas, But Longview, I mean, Fort Smith, Fayetteville, Springfield, up to just south of St. Louis, Paducah, Clarksville, almost gets to Nashville, Jackson, Memphis. So this is really extended. And I will say, let's not ignore this, there is a marginal risk that extends all the way up into Ohio, a good chunk of Indiana, all the way down into almost central areas of Texas, and gets all the way into Middle Tennessee and areas of Alabama. So what's driving this risk tomorrow? There's a pretty large 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. This Brown area, Little Rock, Hot Springs, Memphis, the Buda, Missouri, over in the southwest and western areas of Kentucky. So 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. The green area, which includes Indianapolis, St. Louis, down to Springfield, Fort Smith, Shreveport, Tupelo, Florence, Nashville, 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location. Then the wind threat, if you live in this, which includes the entire slight risk area we've already mentioned, that's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat, it's definitely smaller. It's kind of in the early storm mode stage here. 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger from Springfield, Fort Smith, Fayetteville, areas of the Ozarks, Bentonville, McAllister, Greenville down to Mount Pleasant, these areas right here. So what's driving this? Well, systems moving through a trough, dipping the jet. We're going to aid in a lot of wind energy, what we call kinematics. So we'll start off tomorrow morning. We'll look at the Euro here. And this is actually winds in the lower levels of the atmosphere, 850 millibars, which is about 4,000 to 6,000 feet up in the air. And then, if we really move this forward, it really takes until late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, before this low-level jet, which is really what we look for when we're trying to figure out where the best chance of damaging winds will be, higher wind gust and a tornado threat. And this low-level jet really ramps up, I would say, later in the evening. So this entire purple area, if you live here, the winds will start really getting going as the orientation of this trough really begins to shift to neutral. The winds will start to roar in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Kinematics will increase, and that low-level jet will get going. And this will definitely aid in a damaging wind threat, a tornado threat, and as you can tell, a lot of wind energy in the lower levels of the atmosphere. But just because you see, like in this area right here, just because you see a 50 to almost 60 knot low-level jet, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be where your best tornado threat's going to be. You got to look for the best low-level and just best kinematics, and where they overlap, the best thermodynamics, which is your wind energy. But I definitely think we're going to have some strong gusty winds regardless into areas of the Midwest, Ohio Valley overnight tomorrow night. And you can see how this thing really begins to get a tilt to it. And the orientation of it just goes right, basically north to south. This thing really gets neutrally tilted here. And it eventually can take on a negative tilt. We could have a big wind event in the Appalachian Mountains, especially the southern Apps. Watch out in the Smokies overnight. I would say over the next 1 to 2 days is a great time to go look at leaves this weekend, because this big storm system might take down a lot of the leaves in the higher elevations. I think the lower elevations will be fine, but so a lot of wind energy swinging through. This will overlap a very moist environment. So these are dew points based off the Euro. So we get into tomorrow afternoon. You got this area of higher moisture in the atmosphere. Dew points in the 60s. That's moist air. 70s, very moist air. 50s. And it starts to get into dry air. But this is your thermodynamics, moist, these moist profiles here. And we will certainly have a very moist environment for this time of the year, riding right up the Mississippi into areas of Indiana, Illinois. Heck, dew points will be in the 60s all the way into lower Michigan. So a lot of moist air. And, where the overlapping happens here, for example, let's back this up a little bit. This is like late tomorrow. I would say this is late tomorrow evening. So you see where you got a 45 to 50 knot low-level jet right in here where Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas all kind of come together. You look at the dew points in this same area, dew points in the 60s. So I would watch out for the highest tornado threat kind of in this area right into here. And that matches up decently well with what we're seeing here. You see how the higher tornado threat's right into here, and I'll make this a little bit larger so you can see where we're at. That makes sense, honestly. And I could see a little bit of a higher risk right here in this region just based off that and this. Okay? So And, you know, what a run of the HRRR model looks like right now. It really looks like a more of a, it doesn't look like a very discrete event here, like discrete supercells or anything like that. But as we're moving forward here, you can see some of these circular things coming off some of these cells. This indicates maybe stronger, potentially rotating updrafts. So we'll certainly watch for a tornado threat in there. But it really looks like a messy storm mode. Nothing super discrete out there. Now, this could change, but this is the line of storms moving in tomorrow evening, moving in tomorrow night, and then we wake up, and then we're getting into the middle of the night tomorrow, and this is as far out as it goes. But we could have a line of storms moving through Alabama, Mississippi, Middle Tennessee, and just kind of heavy rain with embedded thunderstorm activity into Indiana and surrounding states. So just watch out for some strong gusty winds in the southern and central Appalachian Mountains. You know, the National Weather Service is not going for super high totals between now and Sunday afternoon, but definitely some gusty winds in the Cumberland Plateau and the Smokies and things like that. As far as today's weather, we got some rain scooting across areas of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region, moving to southern Ontario. Area rain and just moisture moving through North Dakota. Outside of that, guys, not a whole lot going on. If we look at watches, warnings, and advisories, pretty quiet out there. Not a whole lot to mention. And if we look at the Storm Prediction Center outlook, there is a severe weather threat for today, kind of the pre-event, and this could upgrade, but as of now, I think marginal risk fits at best. Oklahoma City up to Topeka, Kansas City, Wichita, Tulsa. You guys have a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather. Tornado threats below 2% not showing up. But not a huge risk of severe weather today. And there's no risk of flash flooding, so that's good. Southeast today, pretty quiet day of weather. Nothing to really speak on whatsoever, honestly. Nice fall day across, especially the further east you get. The Northeast, you think there's a big area of rain coming, but most of it looks to kind of dissipate. But by the time we get into later this evening, some showers could make their way into western New York and could get some heavier stuff into like the southern tier of New York, northern PA as we're getting into the evening, but not expecting any active weather here. South central U.S., there's a little bit of activity in that marginal risk area, but you know, honestly, this run of the HRRR model doesn't really show anything too crazy, but there are some thunderstorms later tonight across this area. Watch out in Kansas City and surrounding areas. And then the north central U.S., and not a whole lot to speak on. Might have an additional downpour thunderstorm that gets going in the UP, down to Wisconsin, down to Iowa. A little thin area of moisture could swing through, waking up tomorrow morning to a little bit of unsettled weather, maybe lower Michigan. Just some showers, some bursts of heavy rain, but nothing to write home about. And in the western U.S., honestly, there's nothing really to speak on here. We could have a system that could swing in. We will have a system that will swing into Montana. A little bit of a cold air shot with it, some snow in the higher elevations, some more rain in eastern Montana from it overnight. And so temperatures, another cool day in the northeast, fall in the mid-Atlantic southeast, surge of warmth in the middle of the country out in the Mississippi Valley once again. And then this is temperatures out west. Folks, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful Friday. And we'll continue to try to figure out what's going to happen in the Caribbean over the weekend. God bless.